Ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday, which means it must be time for some SEO domination. Raw. All right, it's podcast time today. We've got my friend and coworker, a design aficionado of the highest order, who also happens to know an awful lot about SEO. And I brought her on here because we want to talk about optimal design tips, tricks, hacks, knowledge, as it were, for SEO, which is I think, as a marketer, somebody who hasn't spent my whole career in SEO, sort of came to it a little later on. It seems dichotomous, like design and SEO don't belong in the same conversation. One is artistic, one is sort of really technical in a lot of cases, but they do have a fair amount of overlap, don't they?
Yes, they do for sure.
All right. So that's what we're going to talk about. Welcome, Julie. Thanks for being on the show. I'm super glad to have you here. If you don't know Julie, she does beautiful, simplistic designs, which I happen to love, and also very, very deep on the SEO front. So I guess the thing to do is just jump right in. Why does design matter in SEO? What can you tell me about that?
So design matters because search engines really, really value high design. I really take a lot of pride in helping clients create interesting and highly promotable content that helps them earn links. Also, if you jump on somebody's site and their design is just kind of not really cohesive, they don't really have a lot of content that makes sense or is of high value, your bounce rate's probably going to be pretty high and you're probably really not going to want to stay in it for a long time. At least that's been my experience and the experience of when we start to work with clients who need a little bit of help. Once we get in there and kind of clean up their design, their social media assets, their high value content development, we see a lot of success and we can use metrics to back that up.
I have a sneaking suspicion that design affects the psychological aspects of SEO, perhaps disproportionately to anything else. What I mean by that is, like, if I'm a talking head in a various industry and I find your article and I want to link to it, but I go to it, and when I land on the page, I'm like, it's kind of gross over here. Like, it sort of detracts from the authority, right? I mean, good design is authority in a sense, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's all about your reputation. You don't want to link to a website that is confusing, is not designed well, has a long load time. You're just not going to want to be affiliated with that. So we try and create pages and assets and content that people really want to share.
Would you think it's fair to say that backlinks are easier to generate for a well-linked or for a well-designed website?
Absolutely. I mean, people want to associate with, high value companies. They want to think of themselves and their peers as kind of, classier, more respected leaders in their industry. So because of that, they want the design aesthetic to be very high.
Yeah, and I think generating backlinks is one of the harder things that we try to do in SEO. And I think that good, clean design absolutely helps. There's a high correlation between highly linked sites and well-designed sites, at least in this marketer's opinion. So
mine too, that's what we've seen. So we're going to keep doing it.
Right on. So as I think back, sort of through the history of SEO, used to be when I was a young buck, and I keep sort of repurposing this story, but I could just go out there and sort of write a keyword dense headline and a blog post about just about anything and wait 72 hours, and I would be ranking in Google for that thing. But things, they are changing, and the internet is evolving, and a lot more people are beginning to use mobile devices to engage with internet content. And as that happens, sort of the technical aspects of SEO seem to be rising through the ranks of factors that determine how well you rank organically. And I think the page load speed is among one of those things that seems to be the most important. So let's segue for a few moments into optimizing images for SEO. Yes. What can you sort of tell me about best practices or how you approach it?
So optimizing images is super, super important. It definitely increases your site rank. If your page is loading for too long, you're going way, way down on the site rankage. I definitely use, as a professional designer, I use the Adobe Creative Suite. So I use Photoshop. I make sure that my images are 72 DPI and anywhere from around 30 to 100 kilobytes. However, for me and my co-colleagues, or anybody else who wants to optimize images, there's a lot of great platforms that you can use. You can use a website called Compressor. a website called Image Optim. You can upload a batch of images and it'll spit out the optimized images and you can load them on your site. It's going to load beautifully. And then Can I Rank uses a plugin called Kraken Image Optimizer. And that's definitely helped. I don't have to waste a bunch of time optimizing images. Me or anybody else at Can I Rank can jump onto our website, upload it, and then our page is loading beautifully. So I definitely recommend it. Yep.
Release the Kraken.
Release the Kraken.
So lots of really cool tools mentioned there. And listen, it's worth the investment in time.
Absolutely.
Even if you're not a designer, even if you're not an SEO expert, it's definitely, you're going to get results that are disproportionate to the amount of time that you spent just installing something like Kraken.
Yes.
So definitely worth doing and undertaking. So a lot of people are not sort of designers. You mentioned a few tools that they can use. How important would you say this is, even for people that are not designers? Should we continue to revisit this, or sort of what do you think about that?
Everybody needs to optimize their images. I remember when I actually first started, I came from an advertising background. So I started as their designer, but I was kind of new to exactly how design affected SEO. So I didn't understand. I was just uploading, I was like, this image is like of really high quality. Great. It's going to do awesome on the website. And I had a few people step in and be like, no, this is the number one thing. Like, you need to optimize these images. So that's kind of been like my cardinal rule. I make sure that all of the images are optimized. You need to do it. It's just such an easy step that makes such a big difference. So definitely don't skimp on that.
Right. I heard that you have maybe a case study about SEO and social media design. Do you want to tell me about that real quick? Like how you've sort of obviously done some of this in real life, right?
Yep, for sure. So search engines definitely value social media, as do potential customers. It makes you seem relatable. It lets them know that you want to engage in the community. You want to help them out. You want to give them awesome support. So we recently helped one of our clients who is a small e-commerce store in the do-it-yourself niche with a Memorial Day promotion. And it was shared solely on social media. We had 6 promo code sales and we got a total discounted value of around $3,000. So that was really, really cool. That's just one of those instances where our client's super happy. They were just like, hey, let's try out doing some promo sales. I haven't done this before. And it was super successful. He was happy. That's my favorite part about working with Can I Rank. It's kind of just a big brainstorm session. There's no account managers or executives between you and the client. It's just a big fun brainstorm session with the Can I Rank team and the client. It's really personable and we really care about our clients. So
I'm interested to know the difference between, a social campaign that's executed with a designer who understands, SEO and how they're doing it, as opposed to one that sort of doesn't have the benefit of that. Have you seen, do you have horror stories? Like, how does that usually work out?
Usually what happens is, in the past, I've gotten involved with clients who are like, hey, we'd like you to, just recommend some suggestions on how we can kind of up our social media game. Usually it's them creating the social media graphics. They don't understand that, just getting an inspirational quote or like an image from Google that doesn't represent their brand, it's not cohesive at all. It's confusing. You want to tell a story with your social media. I think that's important more now than ever. Now that people are stepping up their social media game, you want to be on their website, click on that Facebook or Twitter and Instagram icon, go to that social media platform, and it's the same consistent message. You can tell that it comes from the same company. They have the same mission. You want them to kind of walk hand in hand together. So with any promotion that you have, any, specials going on, when you're promoting that on your website, you definitely want to carry that out through all of your platforms. So
sort of the goal is syndication, right? And it's much easier to get that if you have a coherent design theme that cascades across all your channels. I think the way people do consumer research today, ultimately, we're all trying to sell things, right? That's the point of SEO. And I think that the way people are increasingly approaching that research is multi-channel by its nature. So they're going to hop from your Twitter to your Facebook, then they're going to jump into Google, and then they're going to go to wherever they can get product reviews.
And it's got to be consistent. Otherwise, it's confusing.
It's got to look the same.
Back out.
It's got to look the same across all those channels. So I guess from the top down, then what's the trick in terms of designing content that people are going to want to share?
So Can I Rank, we use an approach every time that we're about to start developing some new high value content. We'll think to ourselves, number one is, are we the first to do this? Number two, is it better? Number three, are we different? So for example, if we're going to create an infographic, we want to go out and see if somebody else has made an infographic with the same subject matter that we're considering. And if they are, how can we make it better or different? So we want to come at it from a different approach. We don't want to just, kind of take that copy from that infographic, we work it and slap, our client's logo on it. We really want to come from a space where this can be super valuable for them. It takes a different approach. And it's, better design wise. I'll always try and elevate the design. I'll work with my coworkers to come up with some awesome copy. And then we also want to make it different. A good example of that is we recently created an infographic for Massage Tables Now. And it was titled 7 Simple Ways to Improve Your Posture. We were the first company to come out with an infographic of that subject matter. And it did really, really well. We were able to share some links. It got published on their site, and our client was super, super happy. So that was a fun one.
Cool. Yeah, I'm always impressed with Can I Rank, particularly with the level of thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
Not just with the execution of design and content development, but with the thoughtfulness about what it should be in the first place.
Yeah, we
definitely a competitive advantage.
Definitely. We really care. We really want our clients to be, when we share with them, we want them to be excited. We don't want them to be like, I've seen this before. So that's definitely top of our mind.
So there's a little impetus on you to go create something that's visually compelling as well, right? Like you can't just show up with the same boring stuff.
No, not at all. I definitely first thing that I do, I take note of the companies, just their colors, their fonts, and just kind of the visual style. That really doesn't take more than kind of 5 minutes to jot down. And then from there, I have a pretty good map for where to go with graphics.
Yeah. Something you and I have been jamming on too in the last couple of weeks, and this is not something we necessarily discussed in our pregame here, but increasingly the design has to be platform appropriate. Mm-hmm. So Facebook's not going to allow you to go do these big masthead, headlines and then serve the image. So If you want people to be able to boost that post or share it, or if you want to run it as an ad in the future, you have to factor all that into the design from the word go. And all that plays into syndication, which, social signals are really, really important for
absolutely
in terms of strength. So.
Yep. And that's kind of been a challenge for me because, every designer has their own style, but I tend to really like, big, bold headlines, compelling image. And now it's just kind of like when we were trying to get some images together last week, they were like, that's a big no-no. You got to make that text tiny. But we compromised because we have these awesome data visualizations now, and we can just put the headline up top on Facebook. So I think that we came to a really good resolution.
Yeah, absolutely. So, social media is sort of a new entrant in terms of SEO as far as a major consideration. Mm-hmm. But the old faithfuls are like blogs and category pages and, sort of the things that have always been around as long as SEO has been a thing.
Right.
So give me some tips for just upping my design game in terms of a blog article or a simple post,
Yep, definitely. So Can I Rank? We want to tell, with each blog post that we do, we want to tell a compelling visual story. So we've done things like, we'll have, if we have a really long article, we'll have a menu up top and then that'll hot link to the different section. That's a really good way to make sure that people stay on your page and don't get too overwhelmed with big chunky blocks of text. We try to break up the post with, we always have a featured image so that when you're on the blog page, you get a nice visual grid of each image. And then we always try to have some in-text images to make sure that people, they keep getting engaged. We'll mix that up with some CTAs throughout. We have some short codes that we'll add in there. And then every now and then we'll have, if I'm working on a blog for another client, if they have a white paper, an infographic, or any high value content to promote, then we can add in some CTs there, download here. You just want to keep people as engaged with your site, with you, with the company's personality as they can. So you definitely don't want to serve up just, here's the article, block of text. You want to make it, you want to be interacting with them constantly. So that's what I try to do.
Yeah, again, and I think it's super important from the psychological perspective in terms of generating backlinks that people want to see well-designed well thought out content. So, and I think they're more likely to do as you wish when you provide it for them.
Exactly.
Ultimately, we want them to link to us. We want them to link to our download. We want them to go and syndicate that content. So it's super important from a design perspective. So anything else, sort of last thoughts, as it were, extra tips for designing in terms of SEO?
Yeah, I think it's really important to find a way to incorporate the text signals that search engines want to see without interfering with the clean design aesthetic. This is really important for users and conversion rates. And Can I Rank has mastered that by designing beefed up category pages for a number of clients, and they perform much better for SEO while still being very usable and uploaded with text. So that's doing category pages has definitely helped a lot of our clients.
Right on. So I see we got some users online here. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions.
Okay.
And we'll just give them a minute to respond. It does seem to lag by a few seconds. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm going to give you a minute to just go ahead and say whatever you want to say. What's on your mind?
I'm very excited for the 4th of July. I, of course, will not be celebrating at all and just working on high value content.
She's all work and no play.
Exactly.
Definitely no fruity drinks are going to happen, right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
You know, I'm a big fan of like frozen fruity drinks. You would think if you look at me like there's a Scotch guy if ever I saw one, right?
Right.
And I do enjoy a good Scotch, but
you don't shy away from like a girly fruity drink.
I will strawberry daiquiri it all day.
Okay.
No shame in my game. I love it. If it umbrella, even better. Little pineapple slice.
Yes. That is good to know.
That's how I roll.
Or like when they have like the little mermaid decorations, or the extra flair is always nice.
It's got to be frozen though. I don't understand why nobody has frozen drinks in Florida. It just doesn't make sense to me.
You would think they would have those machines, like Not
really.
They definitely don't have them in Minnesota. So,
all right, John's asking us a question. Thank you for saving me from my mediocrity. Any advice on how those of us with zero design skills can easily make our pages more appealing?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely would say like I was talking about earlier, make just like a mini brand guideline doc for yourself. Note their colors. You can always view source when you're viewing the web page and search for fonts, search for colors. If you can't identify them just from looking at the page straight on, identify their colors, their fonts, kind of try and take a look at how the font sizes are for their H1s and H2s and how that interact with each other. You definitely want the H1s, H2s, and then the paragraph size to kind of be consistent throughout. So that's definitely very important to take note on if they have mainly photograph styles on their site or if it's more illustration based. And then when you're developing content, try and match that as much as possible. Really, you don't need to be a designer. There's also some other really cool design platforms that you can use without having the creative suite is Canva. I've actually used them just because I like using that platform. So you can get on there. You can add the hex colors from the site. You can add the fonts from the site. And just don't be afraid to be creative. Don't be intimidated. Anybody can push out some really cool designs just with a little bit of research up front. Just take the time to really get to know the brand before you start pushing stuff out.
I think one of the easiest ways to improve the quality of the design of your site that really is a no-brainer and is to have a coherent type kit. A lot of people, their typography is just absolute garbage. If just Google, like there's a lot of Google fonts out there and they're already organized into coherent type kits that you can just simply integrate into your webpage and use. And I think typography probably is the number one easiest way to de-uglify a very bad site.
Exactly. And when it's consistent, it shows. It'll definitely make your site more professional, more respected in the community, therefore earning more links. So definitely.
Also, there's been this trend for the last year or two, and I don't understand it, to put gray text on a gray background, essentially, like dark gray text on a light gray background or something like that. Listen, a lot of times in terms of usability and stick rate and people just sticking on your website, just having a good black text on a white background, kind of like just increasing or decreasing the opacity, as it were, of the text and making it visible. Super important thing to do. So that's more pragmatic than beautification, but people will stick longer if you don't give them a headache trying to read your text. So.
They will, for sure.
All right. We got a couple more questions. This is good. Wait a minute. Here's Jessica
Okay.
This is her comment. She's just crying
What do you
at
got, Jess?
me, like laughing so hard she's crying. Probably at my fruity drink reference. So AJ wants to know, how do you balance design and SEO? That's an interesting question.
That is an interesting question. I guess I would say, I mean, they talk to each other. What I do design wise, if I do a bad job, the SEO is going to not be as great. So I need to be super mindful of, checking in with my teammates and saying like, hey guys, what's the data on this high value content that we developed? Did it perform well? Did it not? If it didn't, what can we do to improve it the next time around? If it did perform well, then how can we even make it perform even better? I mean, the cool part about our job is we, measure our performance based on data. And we have sprint reviews where we discuss that for every project that we do. So we constantly are in the know of what performed well, what didn't. My team will tell me if we need to up our ante on design, and they'll let me know if what we're doing is working. So definitely, I mean, it's a partnership. It's like any, friendship, relationship. You have to make sure that they're talking together and working together.
Absolutely. That was a great question, actually. Mike wants to know, are there any tips for using design to break up really long blog articles? Actually, you're really good at this. So yeah, take it away.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely utilizing CTAs, utilizing infographics. I try and think about it. I try to think about blog posts like being editorial magazines. So when you're reading through it, you don't just want a long blog post. You're used to seeing text, image, a little infographic, a little sidebar over here. I try to think about it like you're taking in, print, which is what we all took in before we started just looking at blogs every day. So I try and, add in-text images. I always use a feature image, add CTAs if it's super long, use the menu up top with the hot links, use CTAs to promote any white papers or high value content that our customer may have. We really try to dig in at the beginning of each of our relationships with our new clients and see what kind of content they have that we can promote for them. So we'll definitely try and include links there so that they can, view those resources, but just kind of trying to make the whole page a champion for the brand and not just a blog post.
Listen, WordPress themes, like most blog softwares, have come a million miles in the last 10 years, and WordPress is no exception. And there are a lot of really cool configurable themes out there, like the divvies of the world, where you can just inject really cool stuff right in the middle of blog posts, and they look good.
And you don't need to be a designer. That's something that anybody can go in and customize.
Yep. So if you're still on your old, 2004 blog platform, you may want to think about upgrading to something with a little more octane that will allow you to configure these things. So because while the design prowess of theme designers has gone up, the attention span of people on the internet has gone down. And the number one way to run people off is giant blocks of text with no visual relief. Like they just won't read it. So you could be giving away the secret to life. And if you don't incorporate some graphics, nobody's going to read it.
Or just people want to be interacting with stuff nonstop, They want to have stuff to click on. They want to have different areas of the page to look at. So definitely Divi is an awesome, awesome theme. People are upping their game. They want to be interacting with stuff.
Yeah. So we got another question from Jessica. Let me hide Mike's question here. She said, you said it's important to tell a cohesive story with images and posts on social media. Are there any brands that you think do an exceptional job with that?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to say I live in Minneapolis. We have two pretty big brands here, Target and General Mills. And I actually have friends who work in social media at both of those. So I kind of hear at the end of the day, like, oh, I'm working on this campaign or that campaign. My good friend actually does the social media for Gushers, which is a General Mills brand. But it's been kind of cool to see how she's developed her campaign. If you look at the website and you click on the website's wacky to begin with. If you click on any of the social media icons from the website, it all tells the same stories. It's very meme focused, very silly. So that's kind of been cool to see. I think that Target does a great job. I'm a huge Target fan for life. Even across, I look at their website, I follow their social media, but then I have Cartwheel, all of their apps. I registered for my wedding with the Target app. So just kind of seeing how all of their different platforms come together to tell a cohesive story. I think you should take that message and implement it amongst like the smallest brands. You know, just start looking at the companies that you interact with every day, and you're like, oh, that's funny, or that's cool, or that's interesting. I like what they're doing. Take note of that and be like, you know, we may be a super small startup, but why can't we start big and start, you know, doing some cool stuff right off the bat?
Absolutely. I think I'm personally a fan of Social Media Examiner.
Okay. Cool.
If you're ever bored, go check that out.
I will.
There's a ton of flat design, and it is really coherent across all of their channels. They design exceptionally well. They do an excellent job of sort of, you know, not just putting images in post, but images that contribute to the overall story.
Cool.
They're a very well designed brand and a very coherent presentation across social channels. So check that out when you get a chance.
Definitely.
All right. Well, that's about it. So I don't see any more questions. So I'm going to go ahead and shut her down. It's been real. It's Friday. It's time for some pros.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks for being on, Julie. Really a pleasure to have you. Lots of knowledge and gold nuggets have been dropped here today. You would be remiss if you didn't go back through it and write it all down. So this has been episode 4 of the SEO Domination podcast. So pleasure to have you guys on, and we will talk to you all next week. Peace. Grumpy Cat says what's up.